when you live in the north, the difference between the seasons are always full of contrast. Warm weather in the summer, cold in the winter and spring, and autumn, well, autumn could be a bit of everything, which is why it's my absolute favorite season. There's just something magical about those foggy mornings, cold nights, and mix of sun and rain that have always appealed to me. Not to mention the colors, of course. I could go on and on about the colors of autumn and how much I love them. I live in the southern part of the north, and our leaves usually don't start changing colors until late October, while further north it starts already in August. Meaning that by just driving a little bit, in this video it was about 18-19 hours from my home, it is possible for me to expand my favorite season each year by several months. I started this tradition a few years back, and I try each year to go somewhere new, but also visit familiar places I love. This year I stayed in the little mountain village Hemavan in the north of Sweden. A lovely little town nestled between the mountains, offering a perfect location for relaxation and adventures. It was a work trip in the most literal sense of the word. I work with IT and development, and I can do my job from anywhere as long as I have an internet connection. My weeks here were a mix of days off, half days off, and those days when it rained, I just worked full time. I am grateful to work within a field where this is possible, as it makes more room for adventures and wandering, my most favorite pastime. I stayed in this cabin for 2 weeks, followed by a hiking trip to Marsfjellet, which I've already done a video of, and of course the road trip back home, which is a video in progress at the moment. Hemavan is a true haven for outdoor activities, and I spent many hours exploring the area around my cabin and the more known trails in the Vindelfjell Nature Reserve, which is next to Hemavan. We hiked to several mountaintops in all kinds of weather. A few times I had to give up as the conditions were turning worse, and when traveling alone I do need to keep my safety my first priority, especially since I also have Sinky, my dog, with me on these trips. If she hurts herself, I need to have enough energy left in me to carry her down to from wherever we are. It is possible. I have not tried it but trained it a lot, but it is a task to carry an additional 14 kilos down a mountain. We did have quite a bit of rain, more rain than I've experienced in the past years around this time of year. And there were many days where I didn't really see the sun at all. These days I mostly worked and cozied up with Sinky on the couch in the cabin, or we ventured out to the nearby waterfall, which I could see from the deck of my cabin. On my first day in the Hemavan area, actually before I even settled into the cabin, we explored a little mountain called Laksfjellet. I had been on the road at this point for over 24 hours, and I were in desperate need of some exercise. It was very windy up the mountain, but as soon as we reached the top, the sun came through. We explored a bit, enjoyed the view, took some pictures before heading back down again. It was a pretty short trip to get up there, like 1 kilometer each way. But at the parking lot, I met a local who I talked with for a bit. She, of course, asked where I was from, why I was there, and then she suggested me some different trails, and overall made really pleasant conversation, and it felt like a really good sign to run into somebody so kind within, the first few hours of me arriving in the area. Once we reached the cabin, we rested up for a few days and spent the time exploring the area around the cabin and Himmerland itself. You know, buying groceries, picking berries. One of my main goals was to find some nice small trails to take Sinky for her morning or evening walk. I actually got super lucky in that department because just across from the cabin, across the road, there was these two huge lakes, and between the two lakes there was like a small river with small waterfalls and stuff like that. It was a super nice area, and I went down to that river at least once a day and just walked the trails, stared at the water, enjoyed the small forest and the gorgeous colors of the plants and the trees, and it was a great trail. And I went to this trail at least once a day, every day during our stay, because it was like the perfect distance for a short walk when you had been on long hikes earlier that day, for example. But yeah, we spent our days exploring, days resting. And of course, the main reason for me even going here was to go hiking.
She said that the city, it got the best of her. The people walk so fast, their shoes might burn. And she said that the billboards even seem to brainwash the birds, 'cause now they're eating KFC down by the third. And she just wanted time to look up in the sky, feel the rain fall in her face when heaven cries. But her friends, they started to worry and wonder if she's sad. But she never thought loneliness was bad. Oh, when the ravens call her, wanting her to come home, hey. Oh, when the ravens call her, wanting her to come home. Like a cabin out of nowhere, she's more of a loner. She's more of a loner. And it's hard to get to know her, She's more of a loner. She's more of a loner. And it's hard to get to know her. 'Cause she's more of a loner. Yeah, she's more of a loner.
Not all hikes were dry and with a great view, or at least I didn't get to see the view. One day, when the weather was supposed to be great and I had packed up my things and were ready to head out, I had the entire day off. We set out to a mountain called, and I'm probably murdering the pronunciation right now, but called Dalaröve. I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest. It's a Sami word, and I hope I'm at least somewhere close to pronouncing it in the right way. But the hike to this mountain was supposed to be really pretty, with a great breathtaking view at the top. So of course I was like, I have to go here. But soon after arriving, as we were hiking up the mountain, the weather soon took quite a detour from the sunny weather we had to cloudy, rainy and windy. I kept going, hoping it would clear up, get better, but as we got further up the mountain, it was soon, I realized that no, this was not going to happen. The winds had really picked up at this point, and I hadn't brought enough warm clothes for the hike. I did have a sweater and my windproof jacket, but it wasn't enough. We almost got to the top. I was like, I think 100 meters from it or something. I could see it when the clouds lifted from time to time. But the view, which was the main reason I had gone here, was non-existing because of the rest of the clouds. So at this point, it had gotten pretty close to 0 degrees, meaning I had to keep moving all the time to keep warm, and instead of sitting down and waiting for the clouds to maybe lift. So, since I couldn't see the view, I decided to head back down into calmer weather, since the view was my main goal to go up there. And I had hiked pretty far at that point, so it wasn't like I hadn't gotten any exercise or anything. But with the view nowhere in sight on this day, I decided, let's save it for another day, since I knew at that point that I would definitely be back anyway, so no need to force myself into a possible, maybe not entirely dangerous situation, but again, I was alone up there. I only had Zingy. Cell phone signal was not great. So yeah, no need to risk anything. We headed back down the mountain. The weather turned better. It was still cloudy and rainy-ish, but the temperature went up as soon as we hiked back into the valley, and we went home and cozied up, got the warmth.
Sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon, side by side and through, no limit to what we can do. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the is bright. You and I, we got it. We don't need no more. Even in the hard times, you and I can weather any storm.
In my second week, I learned about some special rapids just about 10 minutes away from the cabin where we were staying, in the opposite direction of where I was normally going. They were special, these rapids, in that sense that there were these dents in the rock formed and molded by the flowing water and rocks through the years. The rapids themselves were also mesmerizing, and we spent many hours exploring this area, both by the water and further up the mountain. I'd actually say that a hiking trail I found close to these rapids were my most favorite trail of the whole trip. And I found it like 2 days before I was leaving the area.
When the snow starts to fall and you're buried down beneath it all, when the light fades away, if you lose your breath and the words to say, tides will turn. Rest assured, 'cause seasons pass, a new day dawns, and through the clouds the sun will shine to guide you home into the light.
Our last days in the cabin were spent exploring the nearby area, packing, of course cleaning, before packing up the car and hitting the road once again going south. These last days also marked the beginning of the end of the colorful autumn in the mountains. Frost was lurking around every corner, and more leaves had disappeared each morning, gone with the wind and rain as the cold crept down from the mountains surrounding us. Each morning started with us going searching for berries in the forest just behind our cabin. It was a continuous hunt for me to get to the good berries before Sinky, as she always aims for the bushes that she can see I am interested in. She is quite sneaky in that regard. Other than picking berries, we mostly just existed in this colorful wonderland, enjoying the view of the few flowers still in bloom, and just observed how the nature around us was slowly bracing itself for the new season that lied ahead. It's so beautiful out here. My time here is almost at its end, unfortunately. I'm leaving the day after tomorrow, going a bit further south for a hike in the mountains before the snow comes. And then I'm just making my way back south. Oh, Sinky, yeah. Happy. Yeah. Dickie. What's in what? Oh. Oi. Oh. Puppy. Trying to keep a hold. On the last morning, on the day of our departure, we went down to our river, to my favorite spot for our morning walk. We spent a good few hours there, just enjoying the crisp air and the mist that shrouded everything in this mysterious haze. In my world, when you think of a perfect autumn morning, this was it. Everything was so beautiful, so colorful, so you could feel how everything was starting to go to sleep for the winter. But all good things do have an end, and our time in Himmerland had run out. Thank you so much for following us on this 2-week journey, and see you in the next video. Take care.